Alright, so I've been on a long quest now to make fresh masa at home. The first thing you need is corn, and you just come up closer here. You can see that what I've got is a white corn. You can use a white or a yellow corn, but importantly this is not sweet corn. Sweet corn's a genetic mutation of field corn, which is what is used to make tortillas, and it's also used to make polenta, and it's actually grown very widely in Australia, but it's mainly used as feed for cattle and pets. I've managed to get hold of some of this white corn, which has been dried and stripped from the husk, which it needs to be, and I've obtained that from a supplier of African produce, because the Africans make various foods out of this white corn. So to prepare this white corn, I've just washed over it several times and picked over it looking for discoloured grains of corn, a bit like you pick over some lentils. Now the other important ingredient you need is some lime. Now this is not lime in the sense of the citrus fruit, but the chemical lime in a food safe form. This is some lime that I've obtained from a Vietnamese grocer, because they use it in some cooking techniques. Again, it's difficult to get hold of. I've heard that you can use garden lime, or limel it's sometimes called, but that contains impurities that are possibly poisonous. So if you manage to kill yourself using that, don't blame me, but that is a possible alternative. So it's very simple. I've got about just under a tablespoon of this slaked lime, and I've got about 6 cups of water. You don't have to be too exact with the water, and you just whisk it up. It won't fully dissolve. It'll be what chemists call a suspension, and you just simply pour in your washed corn, which is about half a kilo. So if you want to do more or less, maintain those proportions obviously. And we're just going to put that on the stove and slowly bring it to the boil. Ideally you want to bring it to the boil so slowly that it takes about 30 or 40 minutes, and you want to keep an eye on it, because once it gets to the boil you only want to keep it simmering for about a minute, because you don't want the corn to get too soft. You still want it about half of it chalky inside, and I'll show you what I mean by that about that later. Every so often just give your pot a bit of a whisk, and don't use your best copper saucepan, because you might find they get ruined by this lime, which is it's a caustic substance. It won't sort of kill you or cause you terrible burns, but if you splash any of this solution on you, it's best to wash it off quickly with water, and certainly make sure that no one drinks the liquid, because you're just going to throw it away at the end of the day, and you're going to try and rinse as much of that lime as you can off the corn, because otherwise it does give it an unpleasant taste. You can see that the mixture is just coming to the boil now, and what you can't see is that there's a fantastic smell coming from the pot of toasting corn, and it's basically the chemical reactions that occur when the corn is cooking in this solution of the slaked lime and the water. Now the reason we're doing this, I didn't mention it before, the reason we're doing this is that we are going to break down and get rid of the outer layer of each kernel of corn. And so to do that, we're going to turn off this the gas, and we're just going to leave it to cool and to sit in that liquid overnight to about 24 hours. And whilst it's soaking, the caustic solution will be gradually breaking down the outer layer of the corn, and we'll be able to remove that easily from the corn tomorrow when we come back to it. So I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so I've been soaking the corn for 24 hours, and what I'm going to do now, if you look carefully at the corn, you can see that the skin of the corn is starting to peel off and break down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to firstly just rinse off this excess fluid. And we're going to get rid of all those skins, and the best way to do that, I find, is having drained off the excess liquid to sit the colander in a bowl like so, and just get a sort of a medium flow of tepid water, not cold, not too warm. Tepid, lukewarm water, and so you've got the corn, if you can just come in a bit closer, so you've got the corn sort of sitting in the water there, and what we're going to start doing is picking up the corn and rubbing it, trying to keep it in the container, rubbing it through the fingers, and that is going to encourage all the skins to just kind of rinse away with the liquid that's coming out of the colander and spilling over the side of the bowl. So we continue that process for about 7 minutes. Alright, so I've completed the rubbing and rinsing process, and I've soaked the corn for a few minutes after that, and you can see the change that's come over the corn. If you look at one of these little grains, it's now plump because it's been soaking in the liquid, but it's also lost its outer skin. But this is what is going to be ground to make our masa dough. This machine here, which is a hand grinder, which I've motorised here with a 1/4 horsepower motor with a pulley wheel just to slow down the rotation speed so that it doesn't grind too quickly. You can use a blender, but a blender will not get it fine enough, and also the heat that is generated by the blades cutting the corn, I am led to understand, is not good for the end product. So I'm going to turn this on, and I need to just push the corn through here, and you see it's starting to come out very fine. We're going to do this until all the corn is ground, and then we're going to add some liquid to make the masa dough. I've ground up all of the corn, and what we need to do now is to add enough water to get it to the correct consistency. Now you really just need to judge this. You'll find that the corn will actually soak up the water, and if it's too dry, the tortillas will be heavy, they'll sort of split around the edges, and on the other hand, if the dough's too wet, the masa won't really hold together when you roll it out. It'll be very difficult to work with. So add the water perhaps gradually, maybe just give the dough a little bit of time to soak up the water before you add some more. It certainly doesn't need any more at this stage. You want to get it not like wet clay like this, but a slightly sticky substance. It doesn't, like bread dough or doughs made with flour, have any gluten, so it just comes apart. It doesn't stick together, and it's not elastic. but it certainly needs to hold together in a mass, and that's just coming along together nicely. We might just let that sit for a little bit before we attempt to roll it out. Okay, now we're ready to make our tortillas, and I've got a ball here about this size, but to press it out, these are fairly widely available, even down here in Melbourne, a metal-sized tortilla press. That will do the job, but I find the tortillas that it produces are very small, not like the ones you see being made in Mexico on TV. So I've made a much larger version out of wood, and the principle's the same. You need to line it with one of these Ziploc sandwich bags with the sort of the edges cut off is ideal. Take a ball of dough, that's about 80 grams, the size of I suppose a lime, and the cover over and press down firmly. We will hopefully find that we've pressed out a nice sized tortilla, and this perhaps takes a little bit of practice, but you should be able to, if you've got your dough the right consistency, just peel that away and leave your tortilla in one piece, and then put it in the pan like so. When you put the dough down in the pan, immediately it will stick, but then after about 20 or 30 seconds it will start to release, which you can see can now move around. Now when that happens, it's time to flip it the first of 2 times. Now the tortilla is starting to dry out and get some brown spots on the underside, which means it's ready to flip over, and perhaps I might give it another couple of seconds. Now when you flip it over, hopefully when you apply a little bit of downward pressure around the tortilla, you will see, if you just come in closer, you'll see the tortilla starting to puff up. A bit like a pillow. This is perhaps not puffing up quite as much as I'd like it to. Now that's a puffing tortilla. There it is, beautiful finished tortilla with that wonderful toasted corn smell, ready to fill with your favourite taco or enchilada topping.